After nearly 30 years of life, the Resident Evil franchise is still kicking to this day and better than ever, with Capcom finding major success with the franchise in the last 8 years or so, with many new fans joining the franchise with every new game release. So where exactly does that leave the franchise roots? Those old PlayStation 1 games? Well, now, after the whole trilogy has finally been added to PlayStation 5, I feel like now is the best time to take a look back on where the franchise started, especially as we approach its 30th anniversary. For those uninitiated or new to the franchise, today I'll take you on a trip as I look back on Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3, and we'll see if these games still hold up nearly 3 decades later, and if they're worth playing. So sit back, relax, and let's enter the survival horror. To truly look back on the franchise roots, we must look to the very first Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 1 is iconic. It terrified a generation of kids, whom now as adults, still hold that same trauma and PTSD from the dog hallway. Resident Evil 1 was the birthplace of true survival horror. While there was prior games in this style, none were like RE1. Now, even looking at RE1 in relation to its sequels, which released not long after it did, there was a lot of differences between RE1, 2 and 3 for example, which was due to Capcom, in my opinion, truly nailing their formula. RE1 has a different tone overall from the rest of the trilogy. I mean, it uses live action cutscenes to start, which I appreciate and think are pretty cool. And for example then, RE2 and 3 would forgo these live action cutscenes in favour of CGI cutscenes. But there's just a certain eerie charm to those live action sequences here in RE1. Now, getting inside the mansion, and yeah, the first thing you're going to notice is that the dialogue is renowned for being crap. But I only think that adds to this game's charm. If you're a new fan and you're going into these old RE games with the same story expectations as modern RE games, then you're going to be sorely disappointed, because modern Resident Evil games are Hollywood-esque productions, with millions of dollars sunk into them, with incredible actors giving their best. And that's not me trying to detract from the actors of RE1, 2 or 3, but gaming was different back then. It wouldn't be until the early 2000s when games would really get that Hollywood acting level. Resident Evil 1's story also set the franchise tone, that campy, low-budget B-movie feel, which would be prevalent in many of the games that followed. And story-wise, the Spencer Mansion and the creation of the T-Virus would start here, which has influenced the story of Resident Evil games, up until now. Now, in terms of gameplay, RE1 is the blueprint all your favourite survival horror games follow, give or take a few details. For example, we have fixed camera angles here, and they're just classic. I personally am a huge fan of them. I feel like they give you a lot more purpose to what you're being shown on screen, as well as upping the scare factor. You often have to play around these camera angles, shooting at zombies off screen, only going off the sounds they make. To pair with fixed camera angles, we also have tank controls here. Again, I'm a huge fan of these here, but I know these will be a sore point for some Resident Evil fans, particularly players who have only experienced games from the RE engine era. But hear me out here, the fixed camera angles do in part help with your movement and vice versa, and the clunky movement adds to your sense of dread, as you have to try awkwardly position yourself at the right spot to either shoot enemies or run away. Despite the learning curve that it might be to get used to both of these old gameplay systems, I believe it's worth it to do so, to not only experience Resident Evil 1, but 2 and 3 along with that. Also with these gameplay systems, as you would come to expect from a survival horror game, it also features, well, survival elements. Players must manage both their supplies, ammo, health, etc. Hell, even your ability to save is limited here, which might be a shock for some newer fans, but yeah, those old RE games don't even give you the luxury of saving as often as you want. Players must manage these supplies well in order to survive. And now this video isn't a comparison video, which I've already done for RE1 and 2, by the way, you should watch that after. But in my opinion, RE1 Remake is better than RE1 Original, in every way. However, I do still think that there is merit here to playing this game. If you like the RE1 Remake, this is a fun yet familiar version, but a little different. And I also feel like as a Resident Evil fan, you owe it to yourself to at least try out the game that gave birth to this franchise. And while yes, it is dated in some aspects, Resident Evil 1 is still a great game that laid the foundation for modern Resident Evil as we know it. So I definitely recommend playing this one. However, it's not 100% essential, unlike these next 2 games are. While RE1 was creating the franchise and establishing it, Resident Evil 2 would be where Capcom found their formula and perfected it, in my opinion. Resident Evil 2 sees us take on the roles of the iconic Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield, as they both share a destiny which leads them to the zombie-infested town of Raccoon City. This game features a split campaign system, which allows players to choose one character to start with, and after getting to a certain point in the game, that campaign ends, and then you swap to the other character to see what they were up to at the same time. The tie in these split scenario campaigns is the zapping system, which many of you whom are familiar with RE2's story from its remake will be unfamiliar with. The zapping system is a gameplay mechanic in which how you play your first campaign affects your second. For example, you can take certain items for your A playthrough or leave them for your B playthrough depending on how you're doing at the time. There is also other small moments throughout the game that are like this also. But the zapping system makes the game feel more interconnected, and why it was absent from the RE2 remake I have no idea. In terms of improvements on from Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2 has much better voice acting in my opinion. While it does still retain the campy nature, it feels better voiced here, and I also feel like the story is more cinematic, with the Umbrella corruption plotline being one of my favourites in the franchise. And we also see, even up to now with RE9, Raccoon City is still being brought up to this day, and it looks like we'll be finally closing that chapter of story, so RE2 and 3 still have relevance to this day. The gameplay is also much improved over from RE1. Moving and shooting feels smoother, environments while still being gorgeous pre-rendered backgrounds look even more detailed and clear. The atmosphere is also very different compared to its predecessor. Raccoon City really feels overrun, from how crowded the backstreet alleys are with zombies everywhere, or those same zombies breaking down the windows of the RPD as you run by them, just looking to get a swipe off on you. Raccoon City and the RPD felt alive, and that added massively to this game's story and atmosphere, even down to the RPD building itself. It felt like a labyrinth of puzzles, very like the Spencer Mansion in RE1. Now bringing up Raccoon City, and that's where one of my complaints for the remake comes through. We spent barely any time at all in the streets of Raccoon City. However, in the original, it felt larger despite any console limitations, and Raccoon City is one of the most interesting settings in the franchise, so I would have liked if Capcom explored it more in the remake. However, like I said, this isn't a comparison video, just something to point out. It's no wonder this game is still largely considered the best in the franchise. It's incredible. It's actually been a while since I'd played the original RE2, and I'm so glad I did for this video because the game is amazing. Now, if you are a new fan, and maybe you've only played RE2 Remake for example, I seriously urge you to play RE2 Original. The difference in game here is apparent. While it may feel familiar, the remake cut a fair bit of content out, and the zapping system makes the dual campaigns feel much more cohesive than its remake counterpart. I also feel like the original game shows off Raccoon City as a whole better. While yes, this game does feature fixed camera angles and tank controls like I said, I promise you it's worth learning in order to experience this great game. Definitely check out RE2 Original, that's a 100% recommendation from me. Now how exactly am I playing these games? Well, all three of them have now been added to the PlayStation Network store on PlayStation 5, which will be the first console re-release of these games in like 15 years, last seen on the PlayStation 3 store. To access these games you have three options. Option 1, you can just outright buy these games each for like €10 a pop. Option 2, you can subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium and have access to them as long as you pay your fees. Or option 3, if you purchase these games on your PlayStation 3 on the same account you currently have on your PS5, Sony will actually honour those purchases and allow you to download the games with no additional cost, which is how I got them, and I think that's pretty cool. There has also been some additional improvements and features added to these versions of the games. Of course the games look better, it seems like there may be some resolution upscaling going on here. We also get on-the-fly save states, which are a very nice accessible addition here. As well as that, we get the rewind function, which allows you to return to a point in your game moments prior, so making a small mistake, it's easily fixable. Now, if RE1 was where Capcom discovered their formula, and RE2 is where they honed it, well it seems Resident Evil 3 is where they perfected it. Resident Evil 3 is far different to the games that came before it. Tonally, it's very different. In Resident Evil 1, players slowly creep their way around the Spencer Mansion, not knowing what terrors await them around each corner. With Resident Evil 2, the stakes are upped a little bit, with combat encounters often featuring more enemies. And for RE3, Capcom cranked the action to 11, and out of the entire trilogy, by default, this game feels hardest. Enemies, like I said, are in larger quantities, and resources feel a little scarce. Along with the fact that there's no like medium-middle difficulty for the game, you just have easy or hard. The game opens with Jill Valentine, one of our protagonists from RE1, being thrown from a burning building via an explosion, and immediately you're thrown into an enemy encounter without much time to think, which sets the tone and pace for the entire game. While this game is more action focused, it's still very much grounded as a survival horror game. You can still expect all the same features as the previous two games. Limited inventory space and supplies, tank controls and fixed camera angles, the list goes on. Like RE2, the game's combat encounters often feature many enemies all at once, but in RE3 it feels like you face even more enemies at once compared to RE2, and it really makes Raccoon City feel overrun. Speaking of Raccoon City, this is my personal favourite rendition of the location. A lot of this game is spent searching through Raccoon City, down its many twists and turns and dark alleyways, and it feels like you get to properly explore it, unlike in the god-awful remake. But enough about that. RE3 also features one of the most interactive stalker enemies in the franchise. the Nemesis. An offshoot of the Tyrant project, the Nemesis has one goal: track down and kill all remaining STARS members. After it tracks down Jill and swiftly dispatches Brad, we can see how this game gives you the option to either fight Nemesis or run away from him. And these style of choices will often come up throughout the game, which gives each player a unique experience. For me, when I was gathering footage for this video, I chose to fight Nemesis both times I encountered him, and for my efforts, I found parts to craft a brand new very strong handgun, which made all the ammo and health I used on him worth it. But if I didn't want to do that, or I didn't have the supplies to do that, I could simply choose to run away. And hey, alongside the tank controls, Jill can dodge like an RE3 remake, which is essential if you're going to try take down Nemesis. And speaking of the remake, when looking at the remake's version of Nemesis, it's so apparent how when looking at the original, Capcom completely butchered him. He has a few short scripted chase sections and a few boss fights, and Capcom, in my opinion, really dropped the ball on him. Now, if you are a new fan who has only played RE2 or 3 remake or like 7 or 8, I urge you to play RE3 original. It is so much better than the remake. The remake cuts so much content, and once you get over the controls and camera style, trust me, this game is how you should experience Jill Valentine's journey through Raccoon City. With the many improvements and quality of life features added, along with its low entry price, there has never been a better time to play the original Resident Evil games. So to answer the question I posed at the start of the video, does the classic trilogy hold up today? Yes it does. While yes, RE1 has some age on it, if you can excuse that, then you are in for a treat with a trilogy that offers survival horror's best designed locations and environments to date. Whether you're a fan of these old school survival horror games, or a new fan curious about the franchise roots, definitely check these games out now that they are available on PlayStation 5. Out of the whole trilogy, what is your favourite classic Resident Evil game? Let me know down below, and tell me why. Personally, I think it's going to be RE2 for me. Well, I think RE3 is the best overall. I mean, come on, it's Leon and the RPD. That's just iconic. So, I want to thank you so very much for watching this video, and hopefully, I'll see you on my next one. Peace.